got a big clock apparently staring us down, which I did not know about. I'm a teacher. I hate being under constraints like this. Clocks and timers. What happens if we go over? Are you gonna like lay down the hammer or something?
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Bonsoir à tous et à toutes. Good evening. Thank you for being here. Merci d'être là. My name is Christian. I'm the coordinator of the Lennoxville Library. Thank you all for being here for our 23rd annual Canada Reads, and so does Lennoxville. Yes. It is really amazing. I mean, I think I tell this story almost every year, but it's worth telling how this event started just a few years after the CBC's event in the library with a few spectators and a group of passionate readers. And here we are now in this beautiful space. And thank you all for being here. I want to just start with a land acknowledgement to acknowledge that we are here at the confluence of the St. Francis and Massawippi rivers on the unceded territory of the Wobanakiak, the Abenaki people. And to encourage you all in your different ways to practice reconciliation and honor their continued presence on the land here. And I also want to thank, so the Lennoxville Library, as many of you know, is largely a volunteer-run organization. And this event is no exception. We have lots and lots of volunteer support to make it happen, but it does cost money, so I want to thank our sponsors. We have Marianne Dandurand, the Member of Parliament for Compton-Stanstead, and we also and we also have Steve Elkus Funeral Homes also sponsoring us. So, yep, yeah. And we're like all of our programs here at the library, we're determined to keep them free and accessible to all. But if you are moved to donate a little bit, well, we have a donation jar at the table near the entrance, and we will never say no, and we appreciate your generosity very much. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our fearless MC of many years, Stephanie Brown. Thank you, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian. So we're going to begin the evening. I'm going to just introduce each of the panelists that we have defending the books. And for the theme, one book to build bridges, I'm just going to go along the line so you know who they are. They're a little bit more of information just before they present their books. And right after I present everybody, I'm going to ask Xavier Francis to come up to talk to you a little bit about how the door prizes are going to work. Okay, so directly to my left, I have Kyle Chhatwal. He'll be defending the Searching for Terry Punchout by Tyler Hellard. Right next to Kyle is Jessica Welch, and she's going to be talking to us how Foe builds a bridge. Next is Rebecca Păpucaru, and she has a minor chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt. Next to Rebecca is Jane Baird Warren, who will be defending The Cure for Drowning by Loghan Paylor. And lastly, at the end of the line, is David Winch. He's defending It's Different This Time by Joss Richard. So, Xavier, you could come up, please. We have a lot of prizes donated by numerous places, the CBC and the town of Sherbrooke and various businesses in Lennoxville.
All right, good evening, everybody. So, as Stephanie said, my name is Xavier, and I will be your humble prize drawer for the evening. Speaking of that, oh yeah, Ron's coming with the bowl, perfect. Okay, before we draw the prizes, I have a bit of information for you. So, there will be 3 draws of prizes during the evening. This is the first one, and afterwards there'll be the draw for the grand prize. If you win a prize, you're to go to the table at the back, which is to your left, my right. Judy's pointing to it right now, so you'll see it. It's at the back near the doors. You take any prize you want. You take 1 prize, not more. And very important, if you win a prize, please hold on to your ticket, because after the 3 prize draws, we'll be putting all the tickets back in. So everybody's going to be eligible for the grand prize, even if you've won a prize before. So please hold on to your ticket, even if you do win a prize. And unfortunately, for those of you watching online, door prizes are only available if you've come through the door. So online watchers are not cannot have door prizes. All right. Thank you. So we'll be drawing 11 prizes. We have 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4. All right, there you go, Brian. Your curse has been lifted.
That was his friend, wasn't it?
Okay, this is going to sound rigged. However, I have 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 5.
It's me.
2, 3, 3, 306. There we go. 2, 3, 3, 2, 9, 5. 2, 3, 3, 2, 9, 5. Do we have a winner? Next, I have 2, 3, 3, 2, 9, 9. Congrats. Please go and pick your prize. Two, 3, 3, 3, 1, 1. 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 0. 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 0. Any takers? All right. 2, 3, 3, 3, 0, 7. All right, 3 more prizes left. 2, 3, 3, 3, 0, 4. 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 1. And last prize for this draw, 2, 3, 3, 3, 1, 8. All right. Thank you very much. I'll pass it back to Stephanie.
Thank you. People were very generous. We have a lot of prizes this evening. Kyle Chhatwal. So Kyle teaches English and Humanities at Champlain College. He holds an MA from Concordia University in Creative Writing in English and has published in literary journals across the country. His op-eds have been published in the Kitchener-Waterloo Record, the Stansted Journal, and the Sherbrooke Record. Ontarian by birth, he became a townshipper and a Quebecer over 10 years ago. Kyle will be defending Searching for Terry Punchout by Tyler Hellard.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So I'm kicking this whole thing off, so no pressure on me. The book I'm here to defend is, of course, Searching for Terry Punchout. The title admittedly sounds a bit cartoonish. Terry Punchout sounds a little bit like a video game character, but don't be deceived. This is a smart and hard-hitting novel. The title alone has all sorts of layers to it, and I'll talk about that later, probably in my closing remarks. Our theme tonight, as you know, is one book to build bridges. So how does this book do that? This book is all about building bridges, or rather, trying to build bridges and mostly failing to build bridges. It's about connection by really clumsy connectors. So those who struggle to express emotional need, who can't navigate feelings gracefully, and prefer, whenever possible, to outsource their emotional lives to women. So of course I'm talking here about men. It's also about the prisms through which men refract their emotions, the simplified games they prefer to think and talk about instead of their own messy feelings. And of course here I'm talking about sports. Sport, or following sports, is emotional therapy for men in particular. And all you have to do is listen to about 2 minutes of sports talk radio, that hyper-masculine world, to really know what I'm talking about. But anyway, back to the book. So this novel is about a son searching to connect, and to build a bridge with his mostly absent father. Now, where does the sport come in? Well, this father was an ex-NHL player, but hockey wasn't really his sport. It was fighting. He was a classic hockey goon. Terry McAllister was his name, otherwise known as Terry Punchout, hence the title of the book. The son, Adam, without realizing why, becomes a sports journalist, and that is not a coincidence. Adam followed his father into this emotional world of sport in the only way he was able to do. He wasn't an athlete, so he wrote about it instead. And in following him there, he hoped to finally find his dad. Now, why did he need to find his father at all? Well, why didn't he just give up on him? After all, as Adam admits, Terry was not Father of the Year material. The answer was his father was all he had left in his life. This is a book about men trying to connect, but also about men dealing with the sudden and catastrophic absence of women in their lives. It's a book mostly emptied of women, in fact. And I don't mean that it's misogynistic or tries to erase women or anything like that. Instead, it asks a simple question. What kind of bridges do men build without the emotional resources that women usually offer them? And the answer is they mostly build shaky bridges. Both father and son were abandoned in a certain way by the same woman. And this abandonment was neither callous, nor was it this woman's fault. The father, Terry, was left by his wife because he was a bad husband and he probably deserved it. The son, Adam, was left by his mother, the same woman, because cancer took her early. And when he was a teenager, just on the cusp of becoming a man. In the wake of these abandonments, neither man knows how to approach or connect with the other, so they abandon each other as well and retreat into the islands of themselves. Terry wastes his post-NHL life literally living in a local hockey arena, driving the Zamboni, and becoming slowly the town eccentric. Adam runs away from his hometown completely and cuts all ties with his past, his friends, his extended family, and his dad most of all. Now, like all sons, Adam has looked to his father for most of his life to be the model of masculinity, to learn how to be a man. And without realizing, he becomes more like Terry than he would ever admit. Adam gets punched in this novel about 3 or 4 times, and he punches people too for good measure. So what lesson has he learned from his pugilistic dad about connection? Well, that fighting, just like love, is a kind of bridge, and that it culminates in that most powerful thing, 2 people actually touching each other. In the climax of this novel, Adam fights his wildest, unlikeliest, and flat-out stupidest fight of them all. But it is also the fight that means the most. It is an odd and oddly successful attempt to express his complicated love for his dad. So who does he fight? Well, old Terry Punchout holds the long-standing NHL record for penalty minutes. But he's about to have that record eclipsed by a newer and younger hockey goon, the detestable Bobby Monahan, who I think in the book is a Maple Leaf, which makes perfect sense. Against all odds, Adam throws a punch at Monahan, and of course, it's an idiotic move. He's very big, and Adam gets hospitalized for the effort. But in the moment he connects his fist, or with his fist, and before Bobby pummels him, Adam achieves something that he doesn't really expect. In that moment, he becomes his father. He embodies the image, the ideal, and the source of meaning and purpose that once meant so much to his dad. So in other words, he builds a bridge, however dangerously. As the title suggests, this is a story of a son searching for his father, but he's not an ordinary father. He has a certain infamy, and it wasn't goals and assists that gave him that. It was fighting. This is how he built his identity, his validation, not just as an athlete, but as a man. This story is about a son searching out that identity and validation in the way he understands best. I said in the beginning of my remarks that the title of this quiet and clever novel is also more clever than you think. It works in a lot of ways, and it's got all sorts of layers to it. It's true, but I'll save some of that good stuff for my closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kyle. We're moving on to our next presenter, so Juliette Welch. Juliette is a science fiction writer and a book reviewer based in Sherbrooke. She's drawn to the world's mysteries and the strange ways humanity chooses to explain them. With a degree in film and media studies from Bishop's University, she tends to fall headfirst into whatever universe crosses her path. She's always up for weird literature, off-kilter discussions, or a new adventure. Among other places, her reviews appear in the library's weekly Good Reads column in the Sherbrooke Record. Juliette will be defending Foe by Iain Reid.
Thank you, Stephanie. So, I have heard a lot about this book from everyone in town. It seems that this has been a book that, while I'm sure the rest of the books have all been read and also talked about, this one seems to be the one that people love to come up and tell me that they didn't super either get or want to understand. And I completely get that. This is a surrealist book that is taking place in a slightly dystopian future that feels way too similar to our own. The main characters are in a farmhouse surrounded by corporate agricultural land, and they're constantly being choked out and seemingly forgotten by this large organization that is threatening to overcome them. So, we follow the main character named Junior, and we open up with him loving his life. He lives on this farmhouse. He has his secret illegal chickens. He's able to go to his mill. He's able to work. But then one day, this man from this large corporation comes up his driveway with his green headlights and completely changes his world. He tells Junior and his wife Henrietta, that Junior has been selected to go up to space. He has not been selected because he's good. He's been selected because he should be happy that he has been, and that's it. That's the only reasoning that he gets, and that's the only reasoning that anyone gets for most of the story. Now, with Foe, for anyone who's even read just the first page, we notice that Junior never has any dialogue tags. That in of itself is meant, in my opinion, to disconnect you from him as your narrator. Even though he is the one that is taking you through this journey, he is still the one that completely separates himself from everyone else in the book. He wants to be connected. He wants to understand Terrence. He wants to listen to his wife. He doesn't want to go to space, but he understands that he needs to because other people tell him. Building bridges in this, Junior is meant to be building bridges from within himself to the rest of his own life. You'll see behind me, we have a quote. That first sentence, that is what Junior is saying. And then the end, you have a point, Junior, he says, you're right. That's from Terrence. That's the person who has come to completely disrail his life. Foe is a book that is all about connections. It's trying to understand what makes a marriage, what makes a long-lasting relationship work. It's trying to understand what makes two humans working together. What does that mean? What does that entail? And how deep can it be when you don't have the full information from yourself and from other people? By the end of this book, I believe that while it does build bridges, it's about what is bridging two people together. Is it the memories that you share? Is it the details that you can recite off rote memory, or is it the actual emotions, the actual feeling, the actual human sensations that really keep you close? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I found it a very interesting book, personally. Rebecca Păpucaru. Rebecca her first novel, As Good a Place as Any, was named a 2025 Best Fiction Book of the Year by CBC Books. Her work has appeared in journals in Canada and the US and Ireland and several anthologies, including the Best Canadian Poetry in English. The Panic Room, which was her debut collection of poetry, was awarded the 2018 Canadian Jewish Literary Award for Poetry and was also a finalist for the A.M. Klein Prize and the Gerald Lampert Memorial Award, while her short story, Yentas, was awarded the Malahat Review 2020 Novella Prize. An excerpt from her novel in progress received special commendation in the Noveltree International Next Big Story competition. And in addition to all that, she teaches English at Champlain College. Rebecca will be defending A Minor Chorus by Billy Ray Belcourt.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so confident that this book perfectly exemplifies the theme this year, A Book to Build Bridges, that I may actually go under time and hand over my extra time to the people sitting next to me. I don't know how many of you have read this book. I am quite delighted and surprised that this, I think, somewhat polarizing, slim novel has been selected with its depictions of explicit gay sex between strangers, which I personally enjoyed. It is a slim novel. It features an unnamed narrator who, at the beginning of the novel, is fed up with his PhD in progress and decides to leave academia, return to his community in northern Alberta, and possibly write a novel. And not coincidentally, it begins with his visit to his cousin who is in prison and their conversation behind a glass barrier. And I think this is a book that is about nothing but bridges. It is one bridge after another. Here we have a character trying to bridge the gap between his intellectual life and his sexual life, to bridge a connection between himself and the random strangers he meets through Grindr for his anonymous hookups. He's trying to build a bridge between himself and his Indigenous community and his academic life, a bridge between himself and his estranged mother, and I think most importantly, a bridge between himself and the cousin that he grew up with, almost a brother to him, who is serving time in prison. And that brother, his story, his cousin/brother, is the story that concludes this novel. And then our unnamed narrator decides that he's going to write a novel. So along the way, I think what Belcourt does is he asks the question, can we write our way to a bridge? Is language enough to build bridges between us, whether that language is academia, that academic language that perhaps some of you are familiar with, or the more accessible language of a novel, or the language in this book, which I think is somewhat polarizing. It veers between academia, internet slang, but also the voices of the people in his community that are so vibrant. And that is where the title A Minor Chorus comes from. I believe it's not explained explicitly, although there is a brief mention in the novel. It's this minor chorus of people who otherwise, as he puts it, don't often have the opportunity to theorize about their own lives, whose stories do not often get told. And I'm a little hesitant to use this word, but it's really a novel of reconciliation in a way for this unnamed narrator, trying to reconcile himself to his past, to his present, to his future, trying to build these bridges with himself, strangers, community, academia, friends, lovers. I think it's something that we all try to do. We can't really know each other perfectly. Even ourselves remain a mystery. And I think that's one of the themes that's addressed very adroitly in this novel. So as I promised, I'm going to finish early, or I can just talk about other subjects. That's how confident I am that this book is really about building bridges. And if that's the criteria that we are using for the winner, not the book that we necessarily think is the best book or our favorite book, but the book that best exemplifies this idea, then I think this is the one. And since I have a little extra time, I'll put in a shameless plug. My novel is for sale. It's $20 cash, but the money is going to the Champlain, God forbid, to the Lennoxville Library. That's what I meant to say. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. I'm out.
Thank you. Jane Baird Warren, first-generation Canadian. Jane completed her MFA while living in Europe. Her stories and poetry have been featured on CBC Radio and in more than a dozen literary magazines in North America and the UK. Her debut middle-grade novel, How to Be a Goldfish, was a finalist in 2 national awards, the Jeffrey Bilson Award for Historical Fiction for Young People and the Jean Little First Novel Award. I read Jean Little when I was a child. As well as the Manitoba Young Readers' Choice Awards and the Saskatchewan Young Readers' Choice Awards and the Ontario Forest of Reading Summer's Reading List, all for the same book, How to Be a Goldfish. Jane is the Vice President of Canadian Society of Children's Authors, Illustrators, and Performers, and Jane will be defending The Cure for Drowning by Logan Paylor.
Okay. I'm going to start by telling you about the book, and when I get to do my summary, then I'm going to tell you why it's a bridge builder. It was a bitter afternoon during one of the worst winters the province had ever seen. A 10-year-old girl walked into the forest with her two brothers and didn't come out again. These are the first two sentences in Logan Paylor's novel, The Cure for Drowning. It's January 1931 in the fictional town of Herrichford, close to the real town of Orangeville, Ontario. The McNair family lived just out of town on the land their family has farmed for generations. It's not a hardscrabble farm, nor is it prosperous. The whole family has to work hard just to make ends meet, even the three McNair children. Landon just turned 12, Kathleen, 15 months, Landon's junior, and 6-year-old Jep. This was an innocent time when, after their chores, children were free to wander unchecked and supervised. They played in the woods, fished or swam in the river on hot days. It didn't matter to their parents as long as they were back in time for dinner and any nighttime chores. When we first meet the McNair children, it's a cold January day and they're in the forest miles from home. As they cross a frozen river to make their way home, Kathleen stops on the ice. She sees blue-green lights under the ice and hears voices calling her. She takes a step closer to those voices, then falls through the ice into the freezing water. Landon manages to pull her body from the water, but not willing to abandon her there, he somehow carries her body 2 miles home. The mother, Mrs. McNair, refuses to accept that Catherine's dead. She spoons tea through lips that don't open to receive it, and then desperate, she resorts to superstition, and she slaughters a new lamb, sliding slivers of heart flesh into Kathleen's mouth. Remarkably, Kathleen wakes. Maybe there's a medical explanation, or maybe it's magic. Either way, she's forgotten how to do the simplest things like holding utensils or buttoning a sweater. But she's alive, and the family deem it a miracle. Fast forward 8 years, just before the war in April 1839, and there's a shift in narration. The rest of the novel is told through the eyes of Kathleen, who's now called Kit, and a new character, Rebecca Cromer. Dr. Cromer has moved his family from Montreal to Herrichford, and Rebecca, an only child, is about Kathleen's age. Rebecca Cromer is feminine and pretty. She wears fine clothes and loves reading and books. But she's the sort of feminine that when she sits outside to read, it's under a parasol. By contrast, in the intervening years since we first met Kit, she's become almost feral, cutting off her long hair and needing to be outdoors. She hates having to wear a dress to church, preferring her brother Landon's hand-me-down pants and shirts. Despite being chalk and cheese, these two girls become friends, and even more. They have a short, physical affair, but it's naive, almost innocent. Kit can't let go of the idea of a life with Rebecca, and she offers her this fantasy. We'll walk toward the setting sun until we find the perfect place. I'll build us a willow cabin by the lakeshore. We'll live off fish and berries and dewdrops. I'll whistle down a flock of birds and make you a coat of feathers. As much as Rebecca is drawn to Kit, she's a practical girl. When Landon, Kit's big brother, courts Rebecca and announces his wish to marry, Rebecca understands that, especially in 1939, marrying Landon is the sensible thing. But when Kit hears the news, she's devastated. She hops a freight train west, leaving Herrichford and her family behind. The war further fractures both Kit's and Rebecca's families, but it also becomes a catalyst for change and growth. Landon enlists in the Navy, and Rebecca moves to Halifax and joins the Wrens, leaving her pampered, sheltered life behind. Kit also enlists, joining the Air Force as Christopher McNeil. Kit is stationed in an RAF base in Lincolnshire, England, and becomes a navigator on a bomber, flying sorties into the Ruhr Valley. Is this actually possible? Could Kit actually pass the bend over and cough physical that he'd have to take? Could he live for years as a man? I don't know. But Paylor's narrative is so believable, and Kit's time with the RAF is so immersive, that soon stopped asking myself those questions. The war scenes he wrote made for an absolute breath-holding read. But wars end, thank goodness, and there must be a reckoning for the characters. In England, Kit was Christopher, but how will Kit navigate a return home to a family who knows only Kathleen? And again, I'll do the bridges later.
Thank you, Jane. David Winch is a North Hatley-based writer and editor, or writer-editor, writes a column for the Record Weekend Supplement. This covers, the column covers politics, society, sports, and culture, and he tries to combine research and humor. Winch graduated from McGill in 1980 and then freelanced in Montreal and Toronto before working as a copy editor at the Gazette. And from 1992 to 2018, David worked in the editorial service of the United Nations in New York, Geneva, and Montreal. A semi-retirement, he went on a march through the classics, reading novels by Victor Hugo, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, George Eliot, Flaubert, and Dickens. The best, he concludes, is Les Miserables. David will be defending It's Different This Time by Joss Richard.
Thank you. So it's different this time. You see the cover on the screen. I highlight this because it has an excellent cover. It's very evocative of New York City in the fall. And one thing that attracted me to the book was that I had lived in New York City and I'd searched for an apartment there, and that's part of the core theme of this book. It's hard to find the kind of downtown brownstone that is the focus of this novel that is suddenly and totally unexpectedly become the inheritance of two people who have no relation anymore. So suddenly that brownstone becomes the, so to speak, bridge between them. Romantic encounters anyways are all about building bridges when they're not about burning bridges. And so It's Different This Time, to establish it right away, is a romantic comedy, a rom-com, or a contemporary romance in the language of the industry. But the bridge theme is clearly there, I think. Now, I'm more of a Dostoevsky kind of guy. I like dark and murky novels, and the last movie I went to was a black and white version of The Outsider by Camus that's currently in art house cinemas. But still, this kind of romantic comedy has all sorts of currency in today's culture, especially in film culture, and everyone will remember contemporary hits like When Harry Met Sally or Sleepless in Seattle, which followed on An Affair to Remember, all of which brought together people who were resisting being attracted to each other or on other sides of the continent or the world or the city. Throw in their second chance accounts in movies like It's Complicated with Meryl Streep or My Best Friend's Wedding with Julia Roberts. So enough about the context for a romantic comedy and its sort of hallmark Christmas movie style. This book, as one other writer put it, is a book that if you don't feel like you know what you're doing in your 20s, this is the book you need to pick up. The writer, Joss Richard, similarly has, in her real life, moved to New York and continued to Los Angeles as an extra and a bit of a producer in Los Angeles, as does June in the novel. She leaves Toronto, goes to Columbia, and goes into the theater industry, and there she shares a house with Adam, who's an aspiring restaurateur. They get along, they are roommates, and that has all the question marks that you can imagine among boy-girl roommates, and what kind of bridge there might be between them. But eventually she chooses her career, leading her to Los Angeles, and he stays in New York, and they sort of lose touch until one day, as I mentioned at the beginning, the bombshell inheritance comes that they have inherited a brownstone together in downtown New York. A bit of happenstance, since the owner had no relatives to leave this property to. So suddenly they're back together. And she would like to work on Broadway, and he's running a very successful restaurant in New York. So how do they bridge that gap? And that leads to all sorts of fireworks. And the author bridges this gap by jumping back and forth from the old days of their relationship as roommates to the potential romance in the present. And then it becomes a bit confusing, I have to say. I'm not a big fan of flashbacks because you lose track of the progression of the novel. But this helps to illuminate what's happening in the present. A reviewer in Goodreads, because I'm an obsessive reader of reader comments and reviews, called it medium spicy and said it's definitely you'll have to help me here, an Emily Henry kind of romance, which is modern, witty, deeply emotional, and with fast-paced dialogue. It has grounded characters and related heroes, as well as quite familiar tropes about best friends becoming lovers or rivals becoming lovers. Just to quote her best friend Chloe as she's wrestling with the new relationship now that they're boy-girl together in this brownstone, she says, Adam deserved better. He had the patience of a saint to deal with June. I also hated how miscommunication was the reason for their broken friendship. So they fell apart, they came back together, the inherited house was their bridge, and how it ended, I won't break it to you, but bridges need to be built. Thank you.
I think I've just lost my voice. Sorry. Thank you, David. All right, at this point of the evening, we are going to have another rapid prize drawing for some door prizes. So, Xavier, you would come up, please.
All right, I've got 11 more prizes to be drawn. And remember, if you win a prize, please keep your ticket because that gives you a chance to win the 5 signed books at the end. The last 3 numbers are 337. There we go, we have a winner. Last 3 numbers, 314. Last 3 numbers, 326. All right. There we go, congrats. Last 3 numbers, 332. Last 3 numbers, 340. Last 3 numbers, 343. Congrats. Last 3 numbers, 289. Last 3 numbers, 288. All right, we're getting into the last 3 for this draw, so 290. There we go. Hopefully I don't pick 291, people are going to think it's rigged. 316. And the last prize for this draw, 345. Thank you very much. I'll be back after the questions.
This is the portion of the evening where I ask questions of the presenters. along certain themes that I may have seen in the books, or maybe they saw in the books, or basically trying to get them to talk a little bit more instead of me. So there's a quote in minor chorus on page 160. He says, the narrator says, "I couldn't live my life as if I were on the run all the time." And I read all the books, so I was thinking, in some ways, a lot of the characters in these books are on the run. So if we apply this quote from a minor chorus, "I couldn't live my life as if I were on the run all the time," in what way do you see the main characters or some of the characters in your book living on the run? Kyle, how do you see maybe Adam or Terry living on the run? Maybe more Adam? I don't know.
Well, geez, I thought it was a question for her.
Oh, no, it's a quote from
You
her
set
book.
us up.
No. I might swing back to Rebecca, but
you
no,
did not prepare me
I'm
for this
sneaky
stuff.
that way.
Oh,
Yeah.
you are. I got to keep on my toes. How do I see Adam on the run? Well, as I said in my opening remarks, he's escaping something. Absolutely, he's running very much from this inability of himself to connect with his father in a serious way, and that's exactly. Like he's basically constantly on his run, and this is a story very much, it's the prodigal son returns. He comes back to the place of his emotional failures and tries to reconnect in that way. Failing through it the most of it, but in the end there's a kind of redemption, which is nice to see. So he's very much on the run.
Do you see Terry in any way on the run by the fact that he lives in just that singular place?
He definitely does. I mean, this is a man who, he starts his life with this rare talent as a farm boy, skating on ponds, wrestling sheep, and that's how he becomes strong. And suddenly he finds that he can be validated for that strength and these unexpected skills he has. He suddenly is very good. He finds he's very good at hockey, beats all the kids at hockey. And then he finds himself, the big fish in the small pool, suddenly the fish in a much larger pool. And he realizes that that is not enough to carry him all the way, to give him that sense of masculine validation. So he has to move instead of focusing on his hockey skills, he focuses on his fighting skills. And ultimately, when that fails him, he has to escape that. When his marriage fails him, he has to escape that. And so how does he run? He doesn't run through motion like his son. He runs through stasis. And he literally entombs himself in a hockey arena named for him, where he just cleans the ice every day for Pee Wee hockey and literally lives in the building. He never actually leaves the building in the novel at all. So he is a man who's on the run very much so, but in a more of a hole in the ground kind of way.
Okay. I also think it applies in some ways, David, to June in your book, that she's on the run from something. What are some things that you think she might be on the run from? I mean, I suppose for just the relationship with Adam, what else could she be running from?
I'm not sure why their initial relationship broke down. They were living together, at least sharing a house for a long time, and she herself is baffled. She said, what did I not believe in? Why could I not be blunt? Why could I not be candid about what I felt about him? And she said she just did not believe in herself, and so she was sort of stuck at that point and couldn't get over it. And her friends would say, you're sabotaging yourself. What are you doing? Why can't you just speak up? And she just couldn't. So that is the anti-bridge that she was always facing.
Yeah, she says a lot that she had the feeling of not feeling good enough, that she wasn't worthy. Some of it perhaps from the relationship or the non-relationship she had with her mother, yes. A little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that was very important. She was repeating some family dynamics in that her father didn't want her and her mother sort of pushed her aside and cold-shouldered her.
What ways could be Kit running, or Landon, or Rebecca maybe, but more, not you, the character Rebecca, sorry. Do you see Kit as falling into that ways in which they are running, living on the run?
Yeah, I think definitely Kit is running away from his family, her family, their family. They're running away from the way that they're being perceived, and which is not how they see themselves, and I'm using the they pronoun here. Rebecca also runs away. She finds her life constricting. She doesn't like, she likes the privilege, but she's not comfortable with the rules that come with it. So she runs all the way to Halifax and joins the Wrens. It's kind of a listening station for German submarines, and they wear uniforms, they're in the military. And then she has to run away again when she finds that she's pregnant, and she has nowhere to run to. So she eventually goes back to Herrichford and the McNair farm.
In Foe, do you feel that there's any characters running, if not figuratively, if not literally, figuratively?
I think both literally and figuratively. Junior, really throughout the entire book, while he's going along with the plan about going up to space, he's really trying to run away from it as fast as possible. The only thing that's really keeping him there is Henrietta, who at the end of the book literally runs away. So even though his anchor is keeping him tied down to this one location present on Earth, he really does not want to go there at all, and in actuality he just wants to find that connection with Henrietta, who is already left in her head. So yeah, the running away is like essentially what all of them are trying to do in this book, in this very isolated book in the middle of nowhere. And you just feel in every page like, wow, they just want to get out of here. And that kind of tense atmosphere really pulls you through for the entire part of the book, and really gives them a connection that they aren't communicating together, but it's like building a metaphysical bridge as they go through.
And the quote comes from your book, Rebecca, minor chorus. I couldn't live my life as if I were on the run all the time. Could you speak to how it plays out in your book?
Yeah, I think the narrator, who's unnamed, by the way, he describes himself as very eager to leave the reservation when he's a child, and that's a desire he shares with his cousin, who does leave, but unlike him, his cousin is imprisoned. And then he's eager to leave the academic world. So there is a rootlessness that perhaps he's choosing. But he's definitely, this is a road trip novel in a lot of ways. He's on the road. He has encounters with strangers. He has encounters with people he's known but who have become like strangers to him. And I think when you're on the run, and not on the run, but even on the road like this, it's a vulnerable place to be, especially if you're by yourself. There's really no place to hide from your own thoughts. There's no place to hide from your own fears, your own emotions, from your past. The best you can hope for is that as you're traveling down the road, you're projecting yourself into some better future. And I think that is the hope of this unnamed narrator as he is on the run.
Thank you. I also see there's a lot of, each of the novels kind of explores the feeling of being an outsider. We kind of spoke to it in the idea of being on the run. But sometimes they're an outsider in the society in which they are, or where they find themselves, but sometimes they're also, I would say, isolated from themselves. In what way are they disconnected? How's the disconnection explored in terms of identity? Like as I said, June feeling she's not good enough, or Junior's contentment versus Hen's restlessness. How do these books explore the concept of being an outsider or feeling like one? Foe, for example.
Yeah, Junior throughout the entire book is really feeling like an outsider, even within his own marriage with Henrietta, mainly because when Terrence, the man who has come and told him that he has to leave now, when he comes in to do all of these tests to see if he's, space-worthy, he's not told really what space-worthy means. He's told, stare ahead, answer my questions, take, my sensors, take these pills that I give you. Henrietta, his wife, isn't really telling him anything. And even within what he's telling us about his own life, he feels so disconnected from it. He doesn't remember anything before Henrietta and doesn't really care. And if Henrietta, who is his biggest connection, is the one pulling herself away, throughout the whole book, he feels like he is constantly having to chase after her. and he is constantly feeling like an outsider in his own home. This all leads to a big blow up near the end of the book, which I will not spoil, but he blows up, and it really becomes a come to Jesus moment, for lack of a better word. And in all of it, once he finally realizes what is happening, where he actually is, and who he actually is, that's the moment in which it all goes wrong. So having that kind of disconnection from the world around you is really the main throw point of Foe.
Do you see a disconnect for Kit in Cure for Drowning?
Absolutely. There's a disconnect. He's an outsider. She's an outsider initially from her family, which is really tough when you're a young kid. Actually, sorry, can you hear me? At one point, the mother actually thinks that Kit might be a changeling. So the scene that I described when she drowned and died and came back, the mother believes that Kit can not come back the same. And so the whole formative youth of her childhood until she runs away at 19, Kit is not really fitting in at all to her family, and they see her as Kathleen, and she does not see herself that way.
Do any of you others, do you want to speak to the idea of disconnect? Because I took the quote, it's kind of looking at the disconnection that he has. You spoke to it before. Is there any particular moment in the book that you feel that sort of illustrates that sense of disconnection for the narrator?
Sure. I think that obviously as a gay Indigenous person, he feels disconnected from, I would say, to a certain extent, from this academic world, although he's very much accepted. But I think what's interesting is that when he visits his cousin in prison, he is an outsider in the sense that he's on the outside. But it's when he's, strictly speaking, an outsider, he is not imprisoned, that he has this moment. I'm going to read it to you, actually. It's the best I can do.
That's fine.
I have to find it first.
That's okay.
Okay, I found it. The guards watching from the other side of the metal detector looked at me, a stranger, not with skepticism, but with what I thought was complete comprehension, or what they were empowered by history, by sociology and statistics to know with bodily clarity. I was a coherent object inside a prison. My identity was narratively sound in it. I was a possible inmate. I shared an intimacy of proximity, both in terms of geography and culture, with those inside. We were all part of a single manhunt. So that's an interesting moment where he suddenly does feel like an insider, but at that prison. And I found that intriguing.
It is. It's a lot of two things happening at the same time, because there's like the idea of the glass and the barrier, glass being something that you can see through, but also prevents you from crossing over. So that's very interesting. There's a lot of grief in, I thought, grief is kind of an individual process. We all go through grief in our different ways, though it's a universal experience. To what extent do you think that grief is explored in the novels? For example, the grief in, I feel that it's explored in Terry Punchout's. How do you see it as playing out, in grief and its importance?
You keep throwing me these curveballs. I thought I was going to get the outsider question.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no,
you can speak to that as well.
I actually will. I'll work it all in. Hold on. I just got to figure out how to do
I'm
that.
sorry.
No.
I should also ask David that question too, but go ahead.
It's good. You're keeping me on my toes. Yeah, grief. Let me talk for a second about outsiders, because that has to do with grief. As others were talking, you introduced that idea. That's an interesting lens to think about a hockey player who's suddenly not a hockey player. His only role on the team is to be a fighter, and his office is the penalty box, and literally a penalty box is a very lonely place. So there's a grief inherent in that too. He is, in a sense, mourning what he thought he was, and he realizes that he now just has to occupy this role, which, if anyone knows about the evolution of hockey is the goon role is slowly disappearing if it's not gone already. So there's a certain grief inherent with that too. I think also Adam, the son, the narrator in the novel, who's looking towards his father for a role model of masculinity, also has a serious outsider complex. And this is something I can personally relate to, having grown up in a small town. He doesn't fit the masculine standard of what it means to be a man in a small town, that really rigid sort of what you're supposed to be as a man. And so he escapes to try and find that. There's a great line in the novel. It says something like, there are two types of people in a small town. Those who just can't wait to leave, and those who can't imagine being anywhere else. And he's one of those people who can't imagine, or who can't wait to leave, because he's not finding that way of being a man, and that's why he looks longingly to his father. So that sort of sense of him being an outsider animates so much of this story, I think, for both these men.
Hey, they're both described as being lonely. Adam is described as lonely by both Carol and Jennifer in the book, and also Terry is described, Adam in turn describes his father, Terry, as lonely. And there's this one line that stood out to me when he says, "I'm just not sure it's a great way to live anymore, to live in a lonely existence."
Yeah, and both of them critique each other and attack each other by highlighting the loneliness of their existences. But you're right, that's a constant thing.
Yeah. So the idea, there is an episode of grief in your book, but it has to do with the character Adam and his mother and how he navigates it. Do you feel that June helps him navigate it? Do you feel that it connects her to him in some way because of the loss of a mother? Because she's lost her mother in a sense as well. Do you feel that sort of bonds them together in a sense?
Yes, for those not familiar with the novel, June does not have a mother who cares. She's an accidental child and rejected by her father, and her mother cold shoulders her. But she becomes attached very strongly to Adam's family out on Long Island or Westchester, wherever they are in suburban New York. Very attached to them. So when Adam and June separate, it's very painful. So she does identify very strongly with his mother, who then dies of cancer. So it is a loss that she has to take on and complicates all the relationships, for sure.
Rebecca, you mentioned the word reconciliation. I had it actually in my notes as well. But in sort of the idea of how reconciliation is shown in each of the books, whether it's fully achieved, and how does it build a bridge? Basically, how does this idea of reconciliation build a bridge? You're all going to speak to that in your, what is it, I guess the lightning round, we can call it, at the end with the 2 minutes. So what kind of attempts no, maybe we'll leave it for later. Sorry, I'm babbling. How do you feel that reconciliation is shown in your book, and whether it's fully achieved? We'll start with Rebecca.
Yeah, I guess I would say that, interestingly enough, I mean, there's a lot of talk about reconciliation in Canadian society, obviously. I think what's interesting here is we have an Indigenous narrator who is on a quest to reconcile with himself. Not with Canada, not with the idea of Canada, although it does come up, but really with himself. So I would say that would be my answer to your question.
No, I agree. It's a little bit more about, because it has to do with the idea of identity that you spoke to as well. I mean, reconciliation can have lots of forms. There is a certain amount of reconciliation in your book, wouldn't you say, Kyle? Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I mean, that's what I was highlighting with the theme of building bridges. This is about a son and his father trying to reconcile in any way they possibly can. And in a strange way they do at the end, after he attacks a big bruiser.
Yeah. And do you feel that there's an reconciliation plays out in Cure for Drowning? And in what way do you see it?
There has to be at least an attempt at reconciliation, because after Kit's gone through 3 phases. So the first phase, Kit is Kathleen, and she identifies as she, whether she chooses to or not. Then when Kit goes to work at the RAF, he lives his life as a Christopher. Then when they return to Herrichford, when he returns to Herrichford, there has to be a reckoning or a reconciliation attempt of sorts with the family, because they have not seen him as anyone but Kathleen. So I'm just going to read a little bit. Kit's talking about his mother. She and my father had known only Kathleen, just as Laurie and Isaac and the others had known only Christopher. As for who was sitting at the table with her now, I couldn't even begin to explain it to myself, let alone her. His mother does a great job of reconciling, as long as it's just Kit and Rebecca in the farm. Once the older son comes, Landon, there's an immediate shift, and Landon walks through the door and does not address Kit as Kit. She becomes Kathleen again. They become Kathleen again. And all the progress, all the reconciliation has been undermined, and the mother slips into the same, well, Landon is right, and this is Kathleen. And it's sad, but there is a happy ending, I promise.
In some ways, it has to be maybe more a reconciliation junior to himself or junior to junior kind of thing going on. Do you feel that it's achieved or not? I'm not sure it's really achieved in the book from my viewing, but I'd be interested if you see that there's an aspect of reconciliation that happens.
I think that there's a very small window of reconciliation. I'd say it's about the end of Junior, which those who have read the book definitely know where the end of Junior is. But Junior becomes a completely different person about 30 pages from the end. And that's mainly from realizing with himself that the complete and lack disinterest in anything that is outside of the farm is actually the thing that's holding him back from where he feels like he needs to be. He's been so content for so long in this place that is actually shoving him down, in this specific relationship with Terrence, with this corporate man who comes down, and with his belief that he is in a good relationship and a good marriage with his wife, who is not happy in the marriage, that when he finally gets rid of all of these known expectations of his life, he's finally able to reconcile with the fact that he doesn't actually know where he's at and who he is. And I think that's really powerful, because once you're able to actually find out who you are and you're able to come into yourself, it creates like a whole new era of rebirth where you can actually build stable foundations within yourself and your personality. So.
Yeah, and that sort of plays out in your book in a way, David. Wouldn't you say that she finds this, June kind of reconciles herself with her feelings of not being good enough, her feelings like that. There's a reconciliation of them as a couple, and then stuff happens. But I think what Jessica was saying sort of plays out in your book as well, this idea of like fully coming into herself. So in what ways can you hint to how she shows that, perhaps?
Well, I think she did not understand why the relationship did not take off in the first instance at all, and why she was set off to Los Angeles with no idea whether it ended or not. And she was left with a wide open question, is there any future to it? And given their geographical separation, the question was moot. So the reconciliation is forced by inheriting this house once again, where they're forced to live together. And that's a theme in many of these rom-coms, where people suddenly find themselves, as in the Hallmark movie, where they're reconciled by coming back to a small town and being forced together. So it's sort of a forced reconciliation that does have its benefits for them.
Well, we've had a lot of our time now. That's our 25 minutes. Of course, there's other questions. I have many more questions about structure and settings and things like that, but maybe we can leave those kind of questions to the audience. And right now we have another, I believe Xavier's going to come up and do another prize giving for the door prizes. Thank you. It's a great discussion. We'll come back to it in a few minutes.
I've been told that last time I dropped a couple tickets, so I apologize for that, and I'll do my best not to do it again. Now we have the final prize draw here for the door prizes. Last three numbers, 303. Congrats. Last three numbers, 291. Congrats. Last three numbers, 325. 324. 300. 294. 312. 296. 342. 344. And last but not least, 297. Now please keep your tickets, because when I come back, we'll be drawing the grand prize of 5 books. So keep your tickets and stay tuned.
Okay, thanks. So now this is the portion of the evening where we come amongst the audience, and if you have any questions for our panelists, any particular questions. Do we have anybody in the audience who has a question for our presenters this evening? Oh, yes, okay. Hi. Okay.
So this is for Faux. So this book is not science fiction at all, and I thought it was. Do you think that this book is mainly about relationships, the building of bridges from one character to the other, one person building a bridge trying to leave? Oh, I'm sorry. One person building a bridge trying to leave the book? And do you think the ending was meant to be horrifying or just quietly inevitable?
That's a good question. So, one, I do believe it is a science fiction, because science fiction is, fiction with a scientific background, but that's neither here nor there. Two, I do believe that it is actually building bridges with the relationships between people, because the entire reason why Junior is having this struggle between himself and with the other characters is because he's trying to build bridges with his wife. He's trying to understand what is his role and what is his connection with Terrence, with the corporation, with the whole world, because he's being told that this is going to be saving humanity. So it has to be about relationships, since so much of the struggle is not about him having to go to space or being, replaced on Earth, but it's about how he feels like he can just be thrown away into nothing. And he's like, if I have such an important role in this relationship to me, then why can't my wife connect with me on that level? And that's the whole book. And the ending, I think it was, I expected it. I think it had to be what would have happened, or else Junior wouldn't have really learned anything, wouldn't have connected with anything. And while it is sad, I think it was pretty telegraphed from the beginning what would happen.
Thank you for your question. Thank you. Also, yes, Mead.
Okay. In a minor chorus, there was a couple of quotes from James Baldwin, who is I'm a huge favorite of mine, but also I loved the quote from Mary Oliver, because I'm a poet. I love her quote. Tell me, what would you like to do with your one wild and crazy life? I felt that was very much a mini description of the whole novel, and I wanted your comments on that.
Oh, okay, wow. Well, I thought, for me, I saw all these, there's quotes from a variety of different authors, and they're credited at the back of the book, including Mary Oliver. I know Billy Ray Belcourt is himself a poet. I thought this had to do as well with his attempts to build bridges with other writers and to find comfort in what they have to say. At one point, he describes, like, when he's packing up for his road trip, he's bringing all these books that he loves. He describes them as talismans. So for me, maybe what he wants to do with his life, too, is to connect, to find a way to write himself into a better future, if that makes sense.
We can also take questions from those on the live stream if you have any. In the audience? Nope. Okay. Is there anybody else has a question? Yes, Brian has a question.
So this is a question for anyone who wants to answer it. In a time where we're all trying to look for light, what are some of the different ways, like the ways that the characters or people in the book overcome the challenges to build bridges, and how can that sort of help us, guide us, either as individuals or society, to build bridges in our current world?
Well, I know I've just spoken, but I'm going to read the very ending of this novel, which might answer your question. I'm not sure if it will, but this is after his meeting with his cousin who is in prison. And his cousin talks about what he's going to do when he leaves. He says, "I want to be a good man, a good dad. That's it." And he says, "Write that in your book. I can be more than that. I can escape that cycle." And at the end, the very ending, the nameless narrator says, "Was I happy? That evening I sat down at my desk to finally begin writing the novel I hoped would answer the question." So I think for me in this novel, the act of writing and the marshalling of language is a way to find a way out. And it's not coincidental that his cousin also, he's studying and he's reading while he's in prison. And that's giving him a better vision of what his future can be like. And he's quite optimistic. And then he even says to the narrator, he says, "You seem happy, dude. Are you happy?" So, yeah, I think there's something positive in that.
Does anyone else want to address the question?
I'll add one thing. With Foe, which is a bit of a dark book, you're definitely not reading this for a little light. However, I do believe that the ending where Henrietta finally leaves, she decides to choose herself, to choose the life that she wants to live, that is optimistic in its own way, because you have to be able to find your light wherever you can get it, because sometimes all of it is just dark. So if you can turn on your own bulb, then you need to go ahead and do it. And usually I find that kind of ending that leads you to a change in your own life is pretty light and optimistic for me.
I'll just respond to that too very quickly. I like the way you frame that question, like finding light. So much of the world's darkness has something to do with patterns and how people get into patterns and how cultures get into patterns and generations get into patterns. And this particular book, Searching for Terry Punchout, is about a young man who learns some bad patterns from his father in the sense of relying perhaps on violence and aggression and then escape. But the whole premise of the novel is that he returns and bucks the pattern of escape and comes back to find connection. And already at the outset, he's changing the narrative. And so that sort of gives a bit of a hopeful twinge to it, that in between these leaps of time we call generations, change can happen.
Are there any other questions? The audience? Yes, Ron.
This is for Terry Punchout. It's a conjecture. At the end, Adam has a choice. He can take on a new job in BC, or he can start a relationship with this woman he's met and have a job back at home. What do you think he does?
Well, you stay for the girl, don't you? I hope he does. Of course he does that. I mean, if he just went back, it was just more escape. And then where's the light? Like I said, I mean, I did say this is a book a bit devoid of women, or it's absent of women, but that does sort of paper over the presence of Jennifer. We don't learn a lot about Jennifer, but she is his chance for redemption and to recreate also a healthy relationship with the feminine that he lost with the death of his mother. And so you're right, we don't see much at the end of the book about how that develops, but I mean, I hope he goes for the girl, for goodness sakes.
Do you have any more questions? No? How are we doing for time? Good? Okay. Yeah. So I think we can go into our, is it the last 2 minutes? Okay, sorry. I left my thing. Any questions from the floor? Oh, yes. So now it's the 2-minute summary time. If we have no other questions, I have lots, but they're too involved to be answering. So I'm just going to turn it over to I guess, like I called it, the lightning round. I think you said that to me about the debaters, the lightning round. So we're going to go in reverse order. So this is the time when the panelists have their 2 minutes to tell us how the book built a bridge. 2-minute summary. We're going to start with, at the far end, start with David.
So I could only reiterate that these two lead characters, June and Adam, begin together, become estranged somehow for reasons that they don't quite understand, completely end their relationship, suddenly, like a stroke of lightning, come back together, are still not reconciled, but then manage to work out more directly how they should be together. So it is an exercise, protracted exercise in bridge burning and bridge building. So that is why this is the key bridge building novel that we present tonight, I think.
Thank you. Jane, can you tell us how your book is the one book to build a bridge?
Well, I'd start by saying all novels build bridges. They all invite you to cross from the world the writers created for you every single time. Whether it's a bridge to the land of Oz or to the colonial Nigeria of Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. The Cure for Drowning has many bridges, and you can identify them. They cross Canada from coast to coast, they cross an ocean, they cross back in time into World War II and into an RAF bomber flying missions over Germany. But the most consequential bridge, the one that's the most important, that we're invited to cross as readers, is one of sympathetic awareness, of understanding. After Kit runs away from home, she ceases to be Kathleen McNair. As Kathleen, Kit was often moody and morose, but once Kit buys papers and a uniform from 16-year-old Christian McNeil and uses them to enlist, something remarkable happens. When we cross that bridge with Kit, as Christopher, as a man, we can see that living as a man, he's become happy. He fits into this world with these men in a way he never fit in the farm as Kathleen. As a navigator on Friday's Girl, he's part of their crew. He's important, he's appreciated, and he's well-liked. He's confident, and he's funny. He's freed himself and become on the outside what he's always felt like on the inside, and that's an amazing bridge to cross. But once Kit returns to Herrichford, there's a reckoning. I mentioned about his mother, how Kit says that his father had only known Kathleen, and his bunkmates and his crewmates had only known Christopher, and that he didn't know how to explain themselves to, how did he even put it? I couldn't even begin to explain it to myself, let alone to her. But Rebecca is there, and she doesn't need Kit to explain. She understands. And from the very start of their post-war reunion on the McNair farm, Rebecca acknowledges that Kit is neither Kathleen nor Christopher, not a she nor a he. And from the very beginning, Rebecca uses the pronoun they. So that bridge, well, once we've crossed over it with Kit, we can become sympathetically aware. We understand the real Kit, and certainly we can accept who they are, yes?
Thank you. Rebecca, a minor chorus. How does this build a bridge?
I think I've already made the case for the number of bridges contained within this slim novel. I would say this book builds a bridge between people who would normally not even pick up a book like this in the first place, because it is unusual. I don't think it is a commercial work of fiction, which is not by any means to denigrate any other books that are up here. But I would just, I'm just going to let the words of the author speak for this book, and just read a few quick passages from it that resonated with me and that I think are hopefully relevant. At one point, the narrator says, "What seems to be resonant with everyone I interview is the belief that we have to tell our stories, that storytelling will redeem us somehow, make us less lonely." And this is a novel, you mentioned grief earlier on. This is a character who is estranged from his mother. And there's a lovely passage about that as well. Rachel Cusk wrote, "That's writing for you. When you make room for passion, it doesn't turn up. What I'm saying is, that's writing for you. When you make room for your mother, she doesn't turn up. What does? A brief scene, a little pathos, the ringing earth." And I think there's a simplicity in a way to this book. It's very complex, it's very layered, but there is a simplicity. And I'm not sure, I still have 30 seconds left. I have 27 seconds left, so I'll read another passage that I really liked. "There was the power parents held over us, that of shaping the kinds of debt we carried into our own adulthoods, that we all haul little 5 and 10-pound dumbbells of the past around and say nothing of it is a kind of poetry." I think we can all relate to that, and that's where the bridge is.
Thank you, Rebecca. Jessica. Juliette. Sorry, did I say Jessica? Sorry. Juliette, please speak to how Faux builds a bridge.
Faux really builds bridges because it points out how much it hurts when they lack. Because Junior feels so disconnected from Henrietta, from the world around him, from every choice of his own life, he realizes, maybe too late, that he needs to build bridges to other people using tools that they understand as well. You can't just become an island, because if you're just an island, then you're going to get lost and alone. And I think Faux is really pointing out the need to build bridges. And it's almost a PSA that you need to be able to communicate, you need to be able to listen to each other, you need to be able to listen to yourself, truly. Because the second that you've lost yourself, you've lost the people that care about you because they no longer know who you are. Having this science fiction setting to Faux, I think, really highlights the absurdism of the fact that sometimes you do forget about yourself, but it happens no matter where you are in life. You know, like, I'm 25, I feel like I've lost and found myself 25 times over the course of all my years, you know. And so really seeing this character go through it in a way that feels so absurd highlighted to me how important it is to find the things within me, the things within other people that I can connect with. And that's why it should build bridges.
Thank you, Juliette. Kyle, tell us how Searching for Terry Punchout is the one book to build a bridge.
Sure. First, just because I'm a teacher, I'm going to geek out a little bit and close read the title, as I promised. So there's a lot going on in this title, Searching for Terry Punchout. It is by punching people out, or punching out people, that Terry, in his own way, connects with him. He once admits to Adam that most of the players he fought on the ice weren't actually his enemies, but his close friends, so it's how he connects. It's also by punching out, that he expresses his worth and value. And if he can't do this, then what good is he as a hockey player? What good is he to his wife? What good is he to his family as a provider? In his very last fight, which is a vicious one, he wins it. but he injures his hand really badly, and that basically ends his hockey career. So he punched his way out of his own role in his life by the act of punching. He made himself obsolete. And so what does he do after that? Well, he punches out of life the way you would punch out on an old, those old-fashioned time clocks when you're finished your job. And the same thing, Adam does the same thing too. He punches out of life by just escaping in that sort of time clock sense of the word. He gives up, he disconnects. He chooses that lonely existence that a lot of men unfortunately choose. And that leads to the event of this book, this desperate attempt to change his lonely trajectory. And here too, he punches out wildly at his father, at Bobby Monahan, and any other man tied up in his emotional world. And this desperate effort to almost quixotic effort to build bridges. So I'll just finish by saying, do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying that beating up each other is a healthy way for men to express themselves. Nor is that the message of this book by any stretch. But good books aren't moralistic. That's what fairy tales do. Good books don't give us tidy messages. They tell us in the very real and flawed ways that we contend with a very old problem, how to make human connection. And that's what this does. So I teach young people, young adults for a living. And I've noticed something among the young men in my classes, particularly this generation. I see a lot of hunger in their faces. They're looking for connection as though they kind of lack the figures and structures in their lives to teach them how to be men. And as a male teacher, I feel that, maybe more than female teachers do. The problem I'm talking about here is very well documented. When young men fail to connect, when they tumble into loneliness, when they lack positive role models, that's when they turn to dark places. If you've ever heard the name Andrew Tate, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, good for you. Do not Google it. Ignorance is bliss. But in all seriousness, building strong and supportive bridges between men has always been of the utmost importance, and it couldn't be truer today. So any book that sheds light on that process, that difficult process, has a valued place. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We've come to the portion of the evening. I'm thinking eating because there's lots of great food in the lobby that you can help yourself to. So there are ballots on each table, and we want you to vote for which book you feel builds the bridge, the one book to build a bridge. I just want to mention, all of you talked a lot about relationships, and there was one quote that I singled out from Faux. Being alone is a tricky thing. It's good for us in small doses, but not for prolonged period. And all of the books kind of talk to that there's a need for connection, and that's how we build the bridge, is the relationships that we create, whether it's the relationship with words, relationships with people, relationships with ourselves. That's how we build our bridges. Thank you so much. So vote now, and then we will find out who the grand prize winner. Also, you go get some food as well. Please, please, please do. There's tons. Thank you. If you feel generous also, there is a jar. Yes, we should applaud them. They did so well. If you're feeling generous, there is a jar for people to give donations to the library to help support events like this and many, many other events that the Lennoxville Library hosts throughout the year for young and old and in between. So please show your generosity by giving to the Lennoxville Library. Thank you.
So we do the count, then we have the draw, and then we announce the winner.
Okay, so you'll call on Xavier?
Yes. What time should I call on him?
Like, I would give it.
Give me a signal when the votes are done, and then I'll call. Okay. All right, everyone. I hope you got a nice snack and some good conversation. All right, so now we are going to have the grand prize drawing, and Heather Thompson, who is the library chairman of the board of the library, is going to pull the winning ticket. We should tell you what the grand prize is. Yes. So the grand prize, it's a copy of, okay.
All right, so I've mixed in all of the 33 winning tickets from before, so everybody has a chance. And the grand prize in this CBC tote bag is a copy of each of the 5 books that were discussed tonight, signed by the author. So I'm going to have Heather draw a ticket right now. And then I'm going to read it out. Okay. So we have 2, 3, 3, and the last 3 numbers are 3, 4, 3. All right, you can come to the front and accept your prize. I'll pass it back to Stephanie, and then we will soon know the winner of the panelists.
Okay, so do you want to announce Okay, so as Christian's going to give us a couple of things to say, and then after that I'm going to announce who had received the most votes for the book. You want to do that first? Okay. So it was a really great conversation. I had so many more questions. These books, each of them offers something really, really interesting, and their choices of how they structure them are amazing. And I just think it's a really cool thing, Canada Reads. It introduces us to novels that we wouldn't have picked up if we saw them. They bring a diversity. Each book has a diversity and interest and all that sort of stuff. They definitely, all of them have a way of showing of how they build bridges. But the one that Lennoxville has decided is the best example of building a bridge was the book defended by Jane, The Cure for Drowning, by Loghan Paylor. So, well defended. I think the panelists all did a great job, and I think that we should give them yet another round of applause. All right, Christian.
How about a round of applause for Stephanie Brown, our wonderful MC? And while we're applauding, I guess we can applaud the Canada Reads Committee at the library. There's 5 members who did an amazing job to make this all happen. And okay, right. Thank you. I really just wanted to say thank you to everyone who came, and this is an amazing tradition, and it's so fun to see people turn out year after year, new faces every year, but some people who are really faithful year in and year out. And thank you to the presenters who really accepted the challenge and presented so well. It was really nice. I just finally want to say, this is more on a practical note. If anyone feels like giving a hand at the end of the evening, we could use some help for getting the church back into shape. That means helping to take down the tables. That's Mike at the back who will tell us what to do. But there's also, feel free to hang around and chat, and maybe there's a little more food out there. So that's all I'll say now, but thank you so much, and good night, and see you next year.